My father, on arrival to the maternity home, went straight as usual where my infant head was laid. His major interest was always in the sex of the baby. "He's a boy!" my father screamed when he undressed me. The nurse walked in and nodded in affirmation. "Obia Nozio." The family is stabilized. My father named me in between screaming. He hopped out from the maternity home and ran home to break the news to his Agnes. My coming was heralded and celebrated until 7 market days passed and my bitter umbilical cord finally separated from my navel. But before then, I was given additional name, Obiora, meaning the people's witch. When the cord fell and my sex was unveiled, I was not a male child, as they thought. I had tricked them. I could neither be Obiora nor Obianozie. I was not born with the features to bear such names. They called me Nmutaka, the 9th daughter, the extra mouth, the uninvited guest in a family desperate for a boy. And if that wasn't enough, I was the one pushing wheelbarrows in the village market, sweeping tomatoes. And today, I return to village, not on foot, not on a motorcycle, but in a private jet that hum like thunder in the clouds. The children call out my name with awe, not mockery. And the women, they whispered, "Is that not Nmutaka, the one who pushed wheelbarrow?" Yes, it was me. But I wasn't just Nmutaka anymore. I am the Achalugo, the daughter of many girls, the lion-hearted one, the one grandma built. And now as I descended from the clouds, literally in my private jet, back to the same village where I once starved for hope, I wear my name like a crown. The villagers who once spat behind my back now throw flowers at my feet. They said, "Is that not Nmutaka, the girl who once pushed wheelbarrow?" Welcome to Ideka African Folktales, the best channels for interesting stories in English with lessons. My name is Nmutaka. By my name, the initiator meant to say that it is better to conceive than being barren. Aside Nmutaka, I was given 2 names by my father at my birth. I was the 9th girl and the 9th born of my mother. At my birth, I had come tricking everyone, including the midwife. I was born at the moment when the desire for a male child in my family was at the highest peak. There were already 8 girls at home. Mpani, that was what we called our father. He was not rich and was not poor either. He combined farming and nursing work. He was known for strength mixed with kindness, hardworking and handsomeness. Even at old age, he still won the heart of Mani, our mother. Papa's first wife had no children. She had, but they were dead. She suggested and championed the cause of Papa's marriage to our mother, and that was how our mother became a second wife. We started coming in quick succession, almost like Irish twins. For instance, four of my sisters share similar years of birth. The first two were born in January and December, respectively, in a particular year. 4 years after, similar childbirth occurrence was recorded again. Many people were disappointed. The family needed children, but not bouts of females. Not minding the scorns people threw at Papa, he loved us and treated us with love. We were never in lack. Mommy never went for any farm work because Papa would not allow her. He provided for all her needs. But when we continue coming female upon female, it became a great burden to our father. The mockery, the tongue wagging of the people, it pierced his heart. He had cried home from a kindred meeting one day, complaining that a man had shut him up and commanded him to sit down. The man had told him, to the amusement of others present at the meeting, that women are not entitled to opinions when men are speaking. Mpani was called a woman because we were all females. My arrival was the last straw that broke the camel's back. My father could not bear the shame any longer. Later, I was renamed Nmutaka, since Obiora and Obianozie were names meant for male children. I was not the only one among my sisters with such sentimental name. My immediate elder sister was called Nwasinach, meaning the child that comes from God, or child that comes from God. The oldest among us was named Chimerucheya, God's which was done. The sixth daughter was called Nkonyere, meaning whatever he gives. The fourth child was given Nkemjika, meaning what I have is greater. And my immediate younger sister was called Nwanyebunwa. Girl is a child. And I begin to wonder, has anyone said that female children are animal? But no one should blame our mother or the initiator of these names. They came in response to the wagging tongues of the household enemies, busybodies. It is ubiquitous, especially in Igbo land and other cultures. Most of them are fond of giving sentimental names to the female children when they come in disappointing numbers. But when their births are well placed and mixed with the male children, names like Obiageli, Adako, Norma, Adamalobia are given to them. And I say this is a primitive act, a timid mentality, and a belief that must be revamped. No one sees or knows tomorrows, they say, and a man's destiny is not in any man's hand. Also say that the destinies of the children are not in the hands of their parents. Their early demise may cause delay in fulfilling the destinies of the children, but it cannot erase them. After all, it is in the holy book that it is for a man to cast the dice, but it is God to decide. The sudden death of our father was a big blow to every one of us. He was a good father, The big shelter on our head had been removed. The weather ahead was scorched and stormy. Hunger must not kill the little unimportant girls, and so we finally ended up in the hands of the masters and madams for babysitting and the housemaid jobs. And that was how I came to live with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother's home, in 2 towns away from my father's home. I was taken from cradle. 3 months after the death of our father, my immediate younger sister Nwanyebunwa was born. During Grandma's Omugwo's child visit, she concluded plans with our mother to go home with me. In Grandma's heavy hands, I whined, walked, and talked. I shared the same native accent with her. Grandma had about 30 grandchildren, but about 29 of us had lived with her at different times and ran away or got missed while trying to locate their houses. You didn't ask me why they had to run away. They ran away because they dare not utter from their mouth that they were no longer interested living with her. You mean the mouth with which they used to eat yam and cocoyam? That was Grandma's usual threat. She would threaten us and say, if I hear pim from this your mouth of yours, from which you eat yam and cocoyam, I will unblock your ears. I used to wonder if our ears were blocked, or if it was just her own way of addressing our high-handedness. I was the only grandchild who refused to give in. I stayed put with her. As a young child, I had entangled myself with all manner of childhood stupid acts. Sometimes I was lucky to escape uncaught. Other times, I was caught and punished severely. Most times, I saw myself walking straight into fire and coming out unburnt. Other times, I was the fire. One of them was the hot eggs. The eggs were newly laid and the hens were not sitting on them in the chicken barn. The chicken barns were usually built in the kitchen in the olden days and were used to store firewood as well as burnt ashes. That was the same place the fowls slept and laid their eggs and hatched them. Left with Grandma, I will never be caught. Our visitor uncovered my ploy. He was my cousin, that is Grandma's grandson. I suspected he was into the game too. He must have been for him to detect my swift movement at that moment. After all, the Igbo adage said, "Na fionye maka ọ na-azụ." It is the market one is familiar with that one knows when he sells. Or was it because of his age? He was much older than I was. Ekene, that was his name, was among the grandchildren who had had the taste of Grandma's home and ran away. He often came on invitation with much persuasion through his mother. Of course, his visit was for a mission. He was to go round the farmlands with Grandma to dress the growing palm trees. He will cut the ones with ripe palm nuts and cut down the undesired palm fronds to make room for the growing palm trees. All these cuttings were done on the ground, either by squatting, bending, standing, or jumping. Of course, you know that in many parts of Igbo land, women do not cut palm trees, either small or big. Ekene and I kept strained relationship. He had been to the township. He exhibited this yoppy attitude that nauseated me. Again, I had clashed with Ekene's elder sister and brought shame upon myself. That morning I was given a tuber of yam by grandma to boil while she went to the farm with ekene. She gave a specific instruction on how she wanted the yam to be prepared and also informed me that they would not be long in the farm. I proceeded with the cooking immediately they left. In the chicken barn were heaps of newly laid eggs. Egg was not my favorite, but I had avalanche for the newly laid ones. The egg, when cooked, had great flavor and a wonderful taste. Unlike an old egg or the left behind by the mother hen. Grandma never suspected that I could steal eggs since I usually rejected the offer to cook the ones that were left out by their mother. I was in the habit of monitoring hens to their eggs and picked the newest, but I never did it outside our chicken barn. Our hens were the victims. When I saw that the pot of yam was boiling, I went into the chicken barn. I had no patience to wait for the hen which was about to lay egg that morning. There were other heaps of egg laid by other hens. The hens had just gone out to look for food. So I bended on each heap and scanned for the newest egg. I picked one egg from each heap. Finally, I was satisfied with 2 eggs. I put them into the boiling yam and sat down on a covered mortar, faced the entrance main gate and looked out for an unwanted intruder. Sure, that was the sound of our dilapidated metal entrance gate. Grandma and Ekene were back. Why home now so quick? I asked myself, jumping at my feet. I quickly opened the boiling pot, picked both eggs with bare hands and returned them where they belong. Every day is for the thief, but one day is for the owner, they said. I had come to the end of the road. There was no magic I could do to cover up my evil act. The eggs had been cracked on the heat of the boiling yam and decorated the yam slices with mixture of egg yolk and egg white. When I took my sitting position finally, I walked up to the kitchen. I noticed my one movement when they were coming. I welcomed them and spoke to Grandma in an uncoordinated manner. But she completely avoided me and ignored my greetings. I noticed that Ekene was smiling. I suspected he had whispered something to Grandma. Grandma walked straight to the pot and opened it. She dropped the lid very quickly, went into the chicken barn which was adjacent to the kitchen and brought out 2 leaking hot eggs. Oh, Chimo! I screamed in my mind. Everything had just happened so fast that I was unable to run. Even if I resorted to bolting, the coast wasn't clear. It was congested. If I escaped Grandma, I would be easily trapped by Ekene. I was at the innermost part of the kitchen. What happened to these eggs? Grandma thundered. She folded my blouse from the neck and jacked me up from my sitting position with flickering anger in her eyes. I tried to find my voice but became more confused when Ekene let out a loud laugh. They were laid now, that is why they are hot. I stuttered. If a newly laid egg should be as hot as that, the mother hens will have a burnt anus. But I wonder why the mother hen shouts after laying their eggs. A little boy had argued when we raised the issue that egg was hot, but it is not really the hotness of the egg that makes the hens cry. It is the birth pains. I knew I had provoked Grandma the more with my cheap lie. I should tell it to the birds. She was not a kid. She knew that newly laid eggs were warm, but not that burning hot. So she drew me like a goat on the rope from the kitchen to the goat barn. I knew what she was looking for. She was scouting for a cane. Not an ordinary cane, a cane with tiny branches, thousands of branches, so that one latch on the head will multiply and extend to your whole body. Halfway to the goat barn, I pulled off my blouse which my grandma held and ran as fast as my feet could carry me, covering my exposed chest with my two hands. Grandma pursued me for a while and gave in. That was too close for comfort, and it was not over yet. But at least I was safe for the moment, and I knew what to do to pacify Grandma and calm the situation. Assuming the case will end by the stripes, I would have stood my ground and received it. But it will not. Not when a parrot was an eyewitness. Ekene, he has gotten another story to tell. This time he will tell it with the additions of salt and oil. I was sure and ready for his mother's court when she would visit. I waited until dark before I returned home. I had thought of the best way to appease Grandma or an amendment for my evil act. So I came back home with 3 heaps of finely picked and arranged firewood. Finely arranged bunches of firewood. Grandma screamed and leaped in excitement when I brought in the 3rd bunch. After taking my bath that night, I was offered dinner, and as I ate the food, I darted my eyes in all corners. I sat with my food where I could jump out easily if the need arose. But I was proved wrong. No one bothered me. Grandma was relaxed as she chatted joyfully with Ekene. "Matankma," I greeted as I finished the meal. "Oh, yes, my child," Grandma responded. So with this her tone and manner of response to my greeting, I relaxed and joined in the conversation with Ekene. When it was bedtime, we prayed and went to bed. Nmutaka, Nmutaka. I heard my grandmother called as I made to get up from my sleeping wrapper. Her tone was no longer friendly this time. I had suspected she was up to something when she moved to lock the window and the door. But it was too late to run. A prayer in the hands of the mighty can be taken away by a mightier force. But a prayer in my situation can neither be rescued nor escape. Even the appearance of my late father's ghost will not save me. What I committed was an abomination. I interrupted nature by dipping hands into those eggs. "Manyo, Manyo, Biko, please, Biko." I began to scream on top of my voices when I could no longer endure the hard beatings she was giving me in that dead of the night. "Come on, ego, ego." I changed my screaming at her instruction when the fire on my body had increased. She had instructed me to shout ego instead of Manyo. So this way, I have announced to the world my offense. When Grandma had flogged me to her satisfaction, she dropped the cane. She asked Ekene to bring out the grounded pepper from the cupboard and return it to the kitchen. With a wave of a finger, she ordered me to lie down on my sleeping mat. She told me to be grateful to my God for the firewood which I had brought home. It has saved your private part and eyes from this pepper, she murmured, and that was the last words she spoke that night. Grandma was carved from a granite and ginger. Her heart, hot. Her tongue, a short whip. Her hawks, non-existent. But she had eyes sharper than a hawk's and a hand that could mold anything, even me. I never took Grandma's never say sorry attitude to heart. She had her own justification too. Where and how she was brought up had great influence on her. Judging from what she told me, she didn't know or experience pampering all her life. She was married to her husband at the age of 7 and was left in the hands of a selfish and wicked mother-in-law. I knew some of her pathetic life experiences. The most pathetic among them was how she had lost her toe. Grandma had 9 toes. She narrated how she has lost her little toe. When you see, she began, I was still a new wife and a little girl. I went to the stream to fetch water. The distance of the stream, according to her, is a story for another day. The distance of the stream, according to her, is a story for another day. I set out at the last cock crow. I had returned with the 5th pot of water before the sun set. The hotness of the sun on my body and the burning tree, the stony earth under my feet was unbearable. I set out again for the 6th times. I tripped when I was returning with the pot of water, and in a bid to save the clay pot, a sharp object cut through my little toe. The little toe didn't fall off completely, but there was evidence that the bone was completely broken. The smashed bone was held by part of my flesh. I bled from that spot, which was a stone throw from home. I limped home, draining with blood. The pain of the broken bone was much on me, and I couldn't help but cry. What is that? My mother-in-law backed from the distance as I approached the compound weeping. I would have preferred another broken bone than to stand before her. When I began to explain, she stared at me with disdain and a disgusted face. I had not concluded with the explanation when she shut me up and drove me back to the stream to fetch water. My injury unattended. She threatened to skin me alive if the clay pot had been broken as a result of my fall. Mama, what happened to your toe afterward? I inquired. At this junction, Grandma brought the story to an abrupt end. That was Grandma for you. She frowned at any interrogation, especially when it came from a younger person. It was the same curiosity that robbed me of the opportunity to get vital information from her on the first eclipse of the sun and the final reign of the locust. I interrupted Grandma in the middle of the story by asking her to tell me her age as at that time of the event. And she became very angry and never continued the story. There would have been an avenue for me to work out her real age since she didn't know when she was born. I remember the day some strange but well-dressed young and the women walked into our compound. They were led by one of the villagers and they proceeded first to Grandpa's hut for brief introduction and to us later. They were from National Population Commission. I bet they didn't interview Grandpa. If they had tried, he would dismiss them with his usual talk. No, no, see my wives. A title red carpenter like me does not entertain questions from children, he often said. Truly, he was not an ordinary red cap chief. He wore white robes around his ankles. He hid his face from the sky, the sun, and the moon for 2 months to qualify for the title. In that period, a little virgin girl was employed to cook his meals and to dispose his physics and urine. In his title and position, he must never die on and for market day. If he dies on the say market day, he will be buried in the evil forest. But Grandma had confided in me that most of them had died on her for day, but the family members concealed it till the following day. When the census officers approached us, they introduced their names and began the psyching techniques. They told us how the parents of Jesus obeyed the law of their land and went to be counted. My grandmother beamed with smiles on hearing them mention Jesus. The speaker was a wizard. He had really chosen the right analogy for his introduction. Grandma never played with the name Jesus. Mama, please tell us your name. The cross of their visit began. Ide Yinwe Mbafo, Grandma responded reluctantly. Mama, between these two names, which one is your surname? We mean your husband's name? The census officer queried. Will I leave the names given to me by Nne and bear my husband's name? Were you not coming from his hall? Didn't he tell you his name? A child cannot trick an adult, you know that. Grandma fired at her interrogator and severely pushed her nose upward with her upper mouth. Mama Ndobiko. The humble but unintelligent female interrogator apologized in between laughter. Mama, now tell us your date of birth. The officer continued. Did you witness the Biafran War? What were you like during the eclipse of the sun? Another officer chipped in when no response was coming from Grandma. You will have to zoom in from her grave to inquire from her when she gave birth to me, Grandma said in an angry tone. How many children have you? Are they all alive? I screamed in my heart. These people have an uttered abomination from their mouth. It was a taboo to count number of births before my grandma, let alone demanding from her to do the counting. She had told me the other day when I was counting my sisters and how many we were placed at birth, that births should never be counted. With this last question, she stood up, went in, and never came out. I acted on her behalf without her consent on the rest of the questions. I knew her problem. The officers were too young to interrogate her. On the broken toe, the rest of the story was completed by my mother. Grandma had run home to her father's house and the little toe was cut off and dressed. She was sent back to her husband's house afterward. But the story of her broken toe did not grieve my heart as the story of the missing meat. I have concluded through the story that Grandma was not married to her husband. Rather, she was bought as a slave. If not, why would a newly married little girl go through all this ordeal? Grandma did not steal the meat. She never stole. The meat was hung in the kitchen under the smoked fire. It was meant to be used for the dinner. When her mother-in-law couldn't find the meat on the fire, she raised the alarm. Everyone pointed at the dog, but Grandma's mother-in-law was bent to hanging it on someone. She went into the yam barn and returned with fresh leaves. It was an herb known for vomit inducement. She gave them each a leaf and instructed them to chew and swallow. In no time, they began to throw up, one after another. But Grandma vomited nothing. The pressure of the inducement was so strong that in the process of throwing up nothing, she urinated on her dress. Not dress, on her body. She had no clothes on her. She was a little girl. It was only full-grown girls that wore clothes, jigida and wrapper. When the inspector came to her side to inspect her vomit for meat, she saw nothing on the ground. Grandma could only spit out draw and foamy spittle. There was no food and water in her stomach to throw up. The herb had succeeded in inducing and rumbling her empty stomach. The dinner was not enough the previous night, and Grandma went to bed without food. The fowls were about to roost for the day, yet no food for her. How would she ever say sorry with these kinds of tortures? How could she learn to say sorry when nobody ever told her? How do you teach someone to say sorry when they were punished for crying? How do you give hugs when no one ever hugged you? How do you say I love you when no one ever say it to you? Grandma didn't say sorry, but she did something better. She taught me how to till the land, how to walk, how to talk to silence, how to endure. She shaped my backbone with the same force she used on yam ridges. And with that backbone, I climbed. So remember this. They knew me as the girl who pushed wheelbarrows. But Grandma, she pushed me harder. Life in Grandma's compound was more like living in theater of absurd, dramatic, loud, hilarious, yet deeply formative. Grandma, a woman of contradiction, ran her household like an army barracks. I, Nmutaka, the ninth girl born to my parents, in a society that weigh your worth in male offspring, had become someone of a culture rebel. I broke rules for breakfast and chewed norms like roasted corn. Not because I hated the culture, I was just selectively allergic to nonsense. And the nonsense ran. By the time I turned 14 in Grandma's house, 4 of my sisters were already married off like a borrowed clothes, returned too soon. 2 were even be given out on the same day like a promo package. My sisters were handed over to men before their bones could hold their bodies. I wept the day my immediate elder sister got married. She could barely sweep the compound floor, yet they sent her to live with a farmer. She didn't survive the first year, died in a pool of her vomit from the morning sickness. Dehydration, they said, killed her. But I knew it was the weight of the expectations that killed her. I was not spared. I was done with my primary school, but there was no hope for going to secondary school. Grandma didn't help. She suggested I stay put so I could help her out in the farm works. And when I realized that education would only be a fantasy in Grandma's village, I took destiny by the scruff I returned to my father's house and I ran from one hut to another among my father's kinsmen, begging them to help me go to school. But all I got were stone cold faces and speeches soaked in mockery. The kind one waited with patient faces to hear me out. But when I was done, they gave me a seat and offered what they call a fatherly advice. Wait for your suitors, they all said. To hell with the suitors, I screamed inside me. Then out of blues came a Barrow, a wheelbarrow pusher from Lagos, a suitor to my 16 years old elder sister. He lived in a one-room shack in the city, yet the entire village treated him like a crown prince. Because, well, Lagos is Lagos. I decided I do go with them. But the village gaps, Nmutaka, serve our sister. Our people who rather kneel for strangers than help their own blood, than serve their own relation. But I wasn't going to let their misplaced pride choke my future. Lagos wasn't what I thought. The one-room apartment was a patchwork shelter of plywood in a swamp. We walked on makeshift bridges. Our toilet was the dark, stinking water below. But Ebere had one thing: faith. He was a man of faith. His slogan, "It is well, it shall be well," he will always say, lying flat on his back after a long day pushing iron and rubber through the bustling market. He made more money than I had ever seen. One day I asked to join him. I also suggested my sister start hawking. That is how we became a team, the Pushers Trio. I even enrolled in the night school, daytime for sweat, evening for study. We lived in Mabowa, the forgotten backyard of Lagos, home to paupers, drug users, and broken dreams. There were peculiar things about Mabowa, our area, that were worthy of note. It was abode of paupers, touts, hard drugs users, harlots, and criminals. Unsurprisingly, it was a quiet and a secure place to live. The residents were organized and subjected to the street rules and regulations. They held their street meetings regularly, usually on Sundays. And at the end of every meeting, new tenants were introduced and welcomed. The meeting were chaired by the area chairman. In one of the meetings where my sister and I were introduced, Ogaleke, the chairman, popularly addressed our Baba Wenja, admonished us at the end of the meeting. Whoa, look, una welcome o, as una don take una eye see, una dey for area where everything dey happen. Una dey talk am say area no dey find food for area. We no get security for here. Na all of us be the security. He remarked in his coarse voice. Ebere, my in-law, knew we were lost at the meeting. He interpreted the words of the chairman to us as we walked back home. What he meant by area no dey find food for area is to shun as many as them that are involved in social vices, to desist from practicing them within our vicinity, my in-law explained. I was not surprised about this. Our doors and windows were useless, yet nothing was missing. The chairman was right in his admonition. It is only a foolish thief that steals from himself. Things were getting better for us daily, and we are increasing the quantity and the quality of our outreach to our parents in the village. On one of the days, my in-law traveled to the village to see his mother. and his mother-in-law, our mom. On his return, he brought local snacks from my mother: cracked palm nut, fried bread, fruit, and wet tapioca. He handed 2 envelopes to me. I was not too fascinated about them. I knew what they were. He has returned with such envelope 2 times that year. They were from my sisters. It appeared the long trip took some flesh out of my fleshless in-law. The look on Ebere's face was strange. I was not the only one who noticed his unusual disposition. His wife too did. We knew he had something to tell us. Unpleasant story. How is home? My sister asked, gazing fixedly on her husband's face. Home is as used as it used to be, except that the deaths have been on increase. Young people are dying more these days, Ebere said, trying to remove snacks in his teeth with his fingers. What of mine, our mother? I chipped in. My in-law looks fresher and younger. She no longer goes for menial jobs hunt. She now owns a kiosk and sell everything sellable, he said, laughing, and we joined him. We have similar thoughts in our heads. Mani will sell the beverages we have bought for her, and we also laugh more at the thought. But Nkonyere is back from her husband's house, so Ebere revealed and hissed. So why didn't you follow you to Lagos? My sister and I inquired simultaneously aloud. We were not interested to find out the cause of her return because hers was no marriage. She was lured to marry a sick man, a dying man. Her husband was the only surviving male child and the child of his parents. He resided in the city, but when he became sick with a strange illness, he was brought back to the village. My sister was tricked into marrying him in order to bear children for him before he died. She has lost her husband and the son. Their son was said to have died from the complication of the bad illnesses. But that is not the main issue. Obianuju is heavy with pregnancy and she has also caught the bad disease. I wish I could come with her, but she's crippled. She purges uncontrollable on her wrappers. Her eyes are falling back into her skull and she gazes vaguely on people. Ebere revealed further. I thought deeply on this Oriojo bad diseases as they called it. It must be dreadful illness to have taken the lives of my in-law and the son and kept my sister in such a disgraceful condition. I tried to figure out the ailment through the name, but the more I became confused. There were no diseases that were branded Orioma. That is good illness. So I gave up the thought. The rest of the evening was a sorrowful one for me and my sister. I wanted to cry and scream out my pains to the world. But for the sake of my pregnant sister, she will cry and scream along with me. I heard weeping is not good for pregnant women, not because of the baby alone. For my sister and her husband, I love them with all my heart, especially her husband. He was an angel cloned in human form. Anything that would cause them pain must never come from me. If all Barrow pushers were like Ebere, I had wished to marry one when I have achieved my dreams. For the 2 letters, I was not prepared for any other bad news, so I hid the both envelope under the carpet, unopened. I've thought of enough. I've had enough into my small head for the day. Although the 2 envelopes were addressed to me, I knew the contents were not for my ears alone. Even if it was not addressed to me, I was to read it for whomever it was addressed to. So when I sat outside with the letter the following evening, I notified my sister. We contemplated on whose letter to read first. Tụrụbọm tụrụbọm kedu nke ka mma, ọ bụ nke a. Tụrụbọm tụrụbọm kedu nke ka mma, ọ bụ nke a. We sang and casted lot on the letters, but it kept falling and ending on Nneka's letter. The lot finally ended on Nwanyi Boma's letter at the third cast. It was not by chance this time I manipulated it. Initially, it kept ending on Nneka's, but we were enthusiastic about Nwanyi Boma's letter, the last born of our mother. So when it finally ended her way out of bias method, we grabbed hers to read. Ditto. To my sisters in Lagos, I am writing to you today to say how are you? I hope you are fine. If you are all fine, glory be to God in the highest. It's me, Nwanyi Bumwa, your sister. I want to say thank you for the slippers and half chimi you buy for me. But I am not in the house again. I run away because I don't want to marry. I am small and I want to go to school. I am with girls' high school headmaster, but she's a woman headmaster. She buy common entrance for me. I will write it in June. Nmuta, what is your class now? Thank you. Your sister, Nwanyi Bunwa, in primary 6. Wow! My sister and I chorus, falling on each other's arm in happiness. Nwa is the last word in Nwanyi Bunwa's name. It was a pet name mostly used by our mother. I was gladdened by her letter, not because of the contents, but because of the writer. I was happy she could write a letter and she could communicate in English language. I was also blinded to the grammatical blunders because it has come from my sister. She was in primary 6 after all. She will improve gradually. Nwanyi Bunwa was about 17 years old as at that time. She was the last in the family, born shortly after the sudden death of our father. She was about to write her common entrance examination and had found a sponsor. It was a good news. There is no age limit in education. Whenever one wakes from the previous night's sleep, it becomes one's morning. I glance over the letter for the countless times and drop it for Nneka's. Ditto. Dear lovely sisters, how are you over there in Lagos? I am fine over here. I just want to let you know that I have finished college. I hope to enter university next year according to the promise of my guardians. They say if I agree to marry Oster, their only son, that they will train me in the university. I am going to become a lawyer. I have agreed to marry him. My sisters, do not panic over my life. When I get to that bridge, I will know how to cross it. What is important to me now is university. I am even accepting to marry imbecile. I can even accept to marry an imbecile as far as he will send me to university first. After the rest, we will count miles. Nmuta, what about you? What class are you? I saw the new stove and the pot you bought for our mother. Are you that rich? I will drop my pen here until we see. Goodbye. Your one and only sister, Nneka Aduku. Jambite. What is Jambite? My sister asked amid laughter. She was disappointed when I confessed that I was in the same boat with her. I don't know what she meant by Jambite in brackets. But I reassured her that I was going to find out from my teacher, Mr. Joseph, our English master at school. What about your big book? She asked. She was so anxious to know what Nneka meant by jam bite in her letter. Okay, my dictionary, I said. Yes, my sister replied. After exhaustively searching for jam bite in the dictionary, we were not able to find jam. We were able to find jam and jambalaya. We had great laughs because of the last letter, jambalaya, and we finally agreed to inquire from Mr. Joseph, but not the next day. I've made up my mind to miss classes. Jam bite could wait till Tuesday morning. I had an important meeting on Monday. At night, my mind darted from one place to another. I was unable to force sleep into my eyes. Numerous thoughts was going on at the same time within me. I thought about my sister's letters. I thought about the meeting with the white man. I was supposed to read some new words from the dictionary, but I could not concentrate. I needed to impress my friend in our meeting today. We met under the bridge, our former home. We met under the bridge, our former home. We had used under the bridge for sleeping place for about 1 month. We came back from the market one evening and met the shock of our lives. Mabowa area was demolished and leveled by the Lagos state government. We managed to pick the few and almost damaged property our kind neighbors help us to save and move to under bridge. There we share quarters with the lunatics, the pilferers and the displaced. But it wasn't long before my in-law got a decent room and we moved in. Before then, I had found a friend for myself under the bridge. He was not sharing the bridge with us, rather he came often to give alms to the beggars and the displaced. That was the first time I had seen a white man in a close proximity. This one had advanced a bit in age. I drew his attention first and greeted him. Surprisingly, he replied and drew closer to our corner. He complimented my vocabulary, good grammar, and great sense of reasoning. I requested to know his name the first day, but he declined and would rather have me call him friend. He spent hours discussing anything from education, politics, religion, and what have you. At the end, he scribbled something on a small card and gave it to me. He also promised to be back soon. When we returned from the market the following day, he was already seated on our corner under the bridge waiting for me. From the look of his face, he had waited for so long. Immediately he saw me, he stood and smiled. "Oh, my good friend," he greeted. "Onyocha, my friend, good evening, sir." I greeted him teasingly. He burst into a loud laughter and beat my back playfully. "Where did you go?" he asked when I settled beside him. Thanks to the public convenience quarter in the market, I had gone there to pay the usual defecating fee just to be given flushing water. We used that water to wash our faces and legs, change into our neat clothes before leaving the market. Also, our wheelbarrows were taken to the Barrow Park at every closing hour under the watch of the market securities. These securities were paid through our daily ticket fees to the Barrow Union. Looking at us, no one could guess the nature of our job. Although our dressings might look unattractive, we looked refreshed. Our dressings weren't cute, but they never looked tattered. I was not ashamed of our job. It had done a lot for me already. I disclosed to the white man where we were coming from and the nature of our job. He broke down pay. I told him we needed to pay for a new accommodation. I told him I needed to go to school. I told him that where we hail from, we do not beg for alms. I gave him thousands and one reasons why I joined Ebere and Barrow pushing. Before he left, he called Ebere, my in-law, and gave him 2 wraps of new notes and begged him to look for a house and have us move in. That was how we moved into a new and better apartment, and since then, I've not set my eyes on my friend. He must be searching for me, but my GCO level had not given me time for any frivolity. I was in class 4. My English master, Mr. Joseph, had advised me to register for General Certificate Examination in West African Senior Secondary Examination, ordinary level. This, he said, will help me to clear all the subjects before passing out of the school. I was to pass out from the college at class 5 since the school didn't have class 6. I had devoted my time for books and never bothered to look for the man who gave us a pleasant resting place. But now the result was out. I've cleared all my papers at a sitting and I made 7 A's and 2 AB's. I found the cards where my friend written his office address for me. It has been a donkey year since we saw last. I needed to show him my GCE results, but I needed to study the dictionary too in order to display my English language prowess. That was where my problem lied. The news from home had shattered me. I managed to open the dictionary, not for study, but to retrieve the white man's office address, which was left there for almost 2 years. Will I still locate him? I asked myself. The address read Creek. It was a familiar name. It was a popular place in Lagos. It had a harbor, stop and set out point for ships. I fidgeted before the receptionist as I introduced myself when I entered into the white man's office. I heard the beautiful young receptionist muttering something on the phone. "Oh, look at you, how are you?" the white man said, rushing out of his office. At first, I was lost. I could not say whether the warm welcome was for me since there were other waiting visitors. When I was not responding as I should, he came to me, took me by the hand and led me into his inner office. I brought out my GCE results as I drank from the bottle of a popular soft drinks which he had offered to me. I had completely ignored the glass cup beside the drink. I didn't have the time and patience to pour out and pour into. No time for etiquette. I prefer to pour directly into my mouth at that moment. I handed him the result and began to weep. "I will send you to my country to study the course of your choice," the white man said, trying to console me. That was it, the beginning of the dawn. Before I left Dr. Leo's office to my house, he told me his name. In this case, I had failed to look into the White Sea. His name had been in my custody all the while. It was written on the complimentary card and was also used as the company's name on the complimentary card, which he gave to me the first day we met under the bridge. I would have learned his name for long if I had looked deeper. He also told me about his family. Dr. Leo was a marine engineer. He had a wife and 2 daughters. His families lived in London, and that was where he promised to send me to. When I asked him about his hospital, he mentioned academic doctor. I was actually lost too because I knew doctors worked in the hospital. But he wasn't talking about hospital. The big ego in me did not allow me to ask him the meaning of doctorate degree, so I pretended that I understood. I hid my ignorance and moved along in the conversation. And today, I returned to grandma's village, not on foot, not on a motorcycle, but in a private jet that hummed like thunder in the clouds. The children called out my name with awe, not mockery, and the women, they whispered, "Is that not Nmutaka, the one who pushed wheelbarrow?" Yes, it was me, but I wasn't just Nmutaka anymore. I am the Achalugo, the daughter of many girls, the lion-hearted one, the one grandma built. And now, as I descended from the clouds, literally in my private jet, back to the same village where I once starved for hope, I wear my name like a crown. The villagers who once spat behind my back now throw flowers at my feet. They said, "Is that not Nmutaka, the girl who once pushed wheelbarrow?" When I alighted from the jet, I became engrossed on the spaciousness and beauty of the surrounding. Numerous thoughts swam through my mind as I walked down to the waiting arms of the excited women led by my mother. They were mostly the Umuadas, the daughters of the community married in different places. My mother's sisters. I recognized few, especially those married in the nearby villages. My mother must have informed them. I earlier informed her about my arrival. My maternal kindred had lost an illustrious son. He was a great and popular politician. His corpse was flown in with our company's aircraft for an interment in his hometown, and I was to fly the jet, my jet. The news must have been spread by my mother. "Nmutaka, Nmutaka, this is Nmutaka, Nmutaka. She lived here with us several years ago." The crowd chatted among themselves. "Hey, wo, hey, 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 wo." The women around me remarked and exclaimed, "I am home indeed," I told myself. Home to my own people. Anyone who could pronounce my name this way must have known me from the cradle. Unlike the other people I have been with for the past 17 years, they have found it difficult to pronounce my name. When they finally did, they pronounced it through their noses. They almost changed my name. All I could hear was "Matak, Matak, Matak." I was home indeed. I gave mother a warm hug, stood beside my mother and rested my hands on her shoulder. I saw grandma through her, the chip of the old block. She had begun to age. I was unable to chat with her due to the crowd. I was hugged by all and sundry. Many women took their time to rest their heads on my chest. Others pressed hard on my large breast. I understood their feelings. The helpless and the hopeless and rejected Nmutaka. The non-entity from the tribe of the non-entity had become a pilot, the owner of a jet. The wheelbarrow pusher is home with a jet. It was all written on their faces. The whole scenario had become a drama. Instead of trooping towards the corpse to pay homage to the dead man, the people trooped towards my direction. Our daughter, Nmutaka, our daughter was on the air. The man of the ceremony, MC, had taken over the announcement. Because in case you have not heard, the jet that brought in the corpse of Chief and Honorable Sir Sylvester Dago was flown by our daughter, Nmutaka. She grew up here with us. She was the granddaughter of... The MC began to read out my biography unsolicited. I wondered if it was part of the burial or the part of what he was paid to do. I became the talk of the moment. Though I did not belong to them, I was nurtured by them. Whatever had become had its roots from here. I had decided earlier on to walk to grandma's grave and offer a prayer. Forgotten her, never. The second mother I knew, the woman who had given me a hard skin. She was the lioness who had given me the heart of a lion and made me unbreakable. She did not live to see me fly in with the aircraft as I had told her. She had lived with joy and happiness the day I told her about my dream. I remember the last day we parted ways. I scrambled some arithmetic on my diary. It was exactly 17 years since I left. I will go to her graveside before I leave and make some prayers, I soliloquized. As I look around, I began to recall event upon event. They were fresh in my mind. That year when I needed 120 naira for my common entrance fee and it wasn't coming. What did I do? I became the first woman who pushed wheelbarrow in a Mbaike village and market for money. They mocked me. Daughter number 9, the girl who walked barefoot to the market pushing other people's vegetables in a bent wheelbarrow. My classmates laughed. My mother's sisters mocked me in whispers. But every blister I got from those iron handles was my prophecy. I pushed my dreams through that wheelbarrow. I was that girl who paid her school fees in the primary school by pushing wheelbarrow in the market. Now from the wheelbarrow to scholarship, from scholarship to doctorate, from doctorate to global consulting, from global consulting to jet owner. And when I flew back into Umuike with the jet, wearing my Ankara and black sunglasses, the children scream and follow my convoy barefoot. I remember the market days. I would follow grandma to Eke market not because I love the noise or the song, but because that was where I first saw women who smiled, not because they were happy, but because they had control. That's where I got all my school needs from too. And I was 11 when I pushed my first barrow. They laughed, they mocked. She wan go break her waist. 1 year. But I gripped the barrow. My knees shook. My arms trembled. But I moved. By the time I reached her store, sweat had soaked my clothes and my palms were bleeding. The woman paid me with 50 naira notes and half a roasted yam. I used that 50 naira to buy slippers and sleeping mats, and I hid the yam under my wrapper. That night I shared it with 2 cousins sleeping beside me on the cold mat. The taste was smoky and glorious. That was the first day I earned something for myself. That was the day I earned the name for myself, Nmutaka the barrow pusher. The villagers noticed. How could they not? A girl pushing a barrow was scandalous, shameful. Even men who drank palm wine with shaking hands laughed when I passed. Some call me Onyakayaju, the one with full hands. Others whispers, this one no go marry, under their breath. But every laugh pushed me forward. Every snail fueled my strength, and every market day became a battleground. Even in Lagos, I wore strength like a rapper. I tied it tight around my waist and moved with thunder in my steps. They knew me then as the girl with the red barrow. Today I was no longer Nmutaka the trick baby. I was the one who could lift the 3 bags of cassava without flinching. The one who helped old women cross the mud without demanding change. The one who came to the market with nothing and left with something. A spirit was growing in me, not soft, not gentle, but sharp like cutlass. A knowing that life would not hand me anything unless I reach in and grab it. And I did, over and over again. So when they ask, how did she go from wheelbarrow pusher to private jet? I laugh. They didn't see the days I borrowed school books and read in the candlelight while the others slept. They didn't see when I sold akara before school, pushed barrows after, and still returned, washed dishes for grandma with bruised palms. They only see private jets, but they forgot the journey. Here was I today to the admiration and praises of all, a pilot and the owner of an aircraft. Where I stood had attracted a large crowd, but I was strong this time. I was prepared for the quelling and the pushing of the large crowd of people who wished to have a glimpse of my person. Those who did not know me personally were more eager to look at me. I had come prepared. I was taken unaware the first day I visited my father's home. I tripped severally on the push of the crowd. My return was a day to remember in the annals of Mbaike, my hometown. I had alighted from my car together with my friends. I returned in the company of friends of like minds. We walked into the waiting crowd bearing the campaign slogan, "Stop the abuse, help the girl child, no more relegation, girl's child life matters, cherish the girl child, train a girl child." It was an emotional day, especially those who were in the same boat with my parents, those whose offense was conception of the only female children. I added on Tony part to ascend to this level, I know, but they no longer matter to me. What matter are the present and the future, from disgrace to grace, from shame to fame, from grass to grace.